Hi everybody, Fred the Pirate here, and I'm here to do a review of Attack on Titan episode 21. Now, before I get to that, obviously I did not review last week's episode, and the reason for that was, well, there's two main reasons for this. One, the episode wasn't particularly really interesting, so I didn't think it was too much of an issue that there wasn't a review since not a lot really happened in the episode. In the beginning of this week's episode pretty much covers what happened in last week's episode in about 2 minutes. So that was one of the reasons why there wasn't an episode review. And also, I went back to school last week, so I was kind of busy. I didn't get a chance to review the episode on Saturday, and because I've been busy going back to college, I didn't have a chance sometime later in the week to do it. So I'm just going to do a real quick recap of last week's episode before I get into this week's episode. So what happens in last week's episode is they manage to capture the female Titan. The interesting thing is, though, with last week's episode, we found out that the female Titan has the ability to harden certain parts of her body to essentially where they're almost diamond hard. And so she uses this as a protection mechanism. A lot of the recon corps are really having trouble with that, like their blades can't cut through, her neck because, she's hardening her body parts. And they also did something really interesting, that the things that they have securing her, that the more she heals herself, the deeper embedded the hooks they have in her become. So her healing is actually counterintuitive to helping her. And so there's kind of an interesting moment with Levi where he's talking to the female Titan because he knows that she understands him. And he tells her, is it okay if we cut off your limbs? Because, they'll grow back, or they should. And so he tells her, and he explains to her, I'm not talking about your Titan limbs, I'm talking about your human limbs. And he's like, we have to cut you out of the Titan, and because we need you alive. And then when that happens, the female Titan lets out a guttural scream, and this attracts a bunch of other Titans that are in the area, and they eat her body. And this essentially gives the person who is in the Titan the chance to escape without being captured. And so that's pretty much where this episode starts. And what happens is Commander Erwin sends Levi out to go find this person because they figure out that person who can turn into the female Titan probably has already set 3D maneuvering gear aside for if the situation they were in arises. And so they know that they probably also have the Recon Corps uniform on, so they know they're dealing with, a spy and a saboteur. So they send out Levi to go find this person so they can capture them. Commander Erwin is talking to Hanji, and he explains that, it was probably a mistake to use Eren as a basis for how people who can turn into Titans react, because they kind of assumed that a person who could turn into a Titan wouldn't be able to get out of a body based on what Eren can do. Since Eren's only turned into a Titan a couple of times, and it's obvious that the person who's in charge of the female Titan has been a Titan a lot. Armin, I think he kind of correctly surmises when we cut to him that something's gone down, like that something's not really the way it should be, and he kind of figures out that there was probably somebody in the battle for Torst who found out about Eren turning into a Titan, and that he explained that it was weird that when the Colossal Titan attacked Torst, that after they won back Torst, why there wasn't more Titans just coming back, or why the Colossal Titan didn't just attack Torst again after Eren turned into a Titan. And he figured that there's probably somebody there and somebody higher up where Eren turning into a Titan really fucked shit up, and so they really have to deal with Eren. And so that's probably why they know Eren was out there, because, they knew about Torst. And I think that was a really interesting point about exactly who is in charge of these Titans and what exactly their goal is. I think it's pretty obvious that whoever is in charge of the Titans is probably somebody who's high up in the political structure. I think that there's probably somebody, who runs the human society, who's probably also in charge of the Titans. because it just seemed like there has to be someone high up who's in charge of this. Because, like, this is definitely a really big conspiracy. And I think it would kind of be interesting to see, the mastermind behind that orchestration. We cut back to Erwin and Hanji, and Erwin mentions when talking to Hanji, and I think that they mentioned that the person who is ever in charge of the female Titan might have the ability to turn into a Titan more than once, and that turns out to be true, and that segues into them going to Eren group, and the person who chases them becomes the female Titan again, and we cut back to where Eren's at first like he thinks he should turn into the Titan again to protect his group, but they said, no, we got this, and just trust us, which this kind of goes back to what happened a couple episodes ago. And what happens is they don't end up getting it, and all of them end up getting killed. And so Eren feels horrible about this, and he blames himself for this. He's like, I should have listened to my gut feeling that when I wanted to turn into a Titan to protect people, that I should have listened to my gut, that I should have done this. And I think that's really interesting, because I think Eren does have a good point, but I think his allies had a good point. It's like, you need to trust us to be competent in what we're doing. And although they weren't in this situation, I think they're both equally good points. So Eren, he turns into a Titan after everybody's killed, and they have a really awesome Titan on Titan battle. And this was a really interesting episode because we got to see really that Eren was such a noob. Like he really was just so unskilled, and I think that was interesting because when the first couple times we've seen him turn into a Titan, he looked like he was a boss and like he knew what he was doing. But when you think about it, that was probably because he was fighting regular stupid Titans, and regular Titans aren't much of a threat, but like he's fighting someone like himself, someone who has the ability to turn into a Titan. And not only is it obvious that they can do that, but he's obviously fighting somebody who is much more skilled at it than he has, and someone who has been doing it for a significantly lot longer than Eren has. And so it was really interesting just seeing just what a noob he was. Like, that was really interesting. And because he was such a noob, he ends up getting defeated spectacularly. The female Titan ends up sharpening her hand enough and pretty much turning it into a blade, and she just cuts off his head, and she bites Eren out of his body. And when Eren turned into a Titan, he gave out, the Titan scream, and this alerted Mikasa, because I guess apparently she just knows what Eren's Titan scream is, and so she went beelining right for him, and she happened to show up right when, Eren got captured by the female Titan when she ate him. So right now, Eren's kind of in the belly of the beast again. It will be interesting to see how that turns out. So when that happens, Mikasa goes and she tries to follow the female Titan, and she tries to kill the female Titan so she can get Eren out. But she encounters the diamond skin thing, and so she has to hold back real quick so she can change her blades. And right when that happens, Levi shows up, and he's like, you and me need to fall back for a little bit so we can chase this thing, and eventually we can get the jump on it. And so that's where the episode ends. Levi and Mikasa are definitely going to team up for next week's episode. And I'm definitely looking forward to that, because Levi and Mikasa are both really, really good fighters. And honestly, I'd like to see an episode where they team up, because I know Mikasa doesn't really like Levi, but I think it would be cool to just see probably, arguably the two strongest characters in the series, team up to kick people's asses. That'd definitely be really fun to watch. So I'm definitely really looking forward to next week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode, and you guys enjoyed the review. And make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.